Spook.
Yes.
I was thinking we'd do something a little bit different for the opening.
Oh, really? What are we doing?
Let's talk about culture.
Culture? Like Culture Club?
No, like Australian wildlife culture.
Ah, do they have a culture?
I've been reading about wildlife. Did you know the Gouldian finch, I think I've pronounced that correctly, the Gouldian finch is one of the prettiest small birds in the world?
Do we have a picture of it?
I'm pretty sure we do.
Ah.
There you go. It is pretty.
The Gouldian finch.
In the dry season, it's reliant on controlled burns so that it can find seeds in the ground.
That's impressive.
Unfortunately...
Where does it keep its matches?
I don't know. Probably at the MCG. But unfortunately, it's endangered.
Is it?
Yes.
That's
It's
a shame.
under threat of extinction.
Ah. What else you got for us?
The northern quoll is a carnivorous spotted marsupial. They're susceptible to cane toad toxins, fire, and introduced predators. But they're another native animal, unfortunately again, under threat of extinction.
The northern quoll.
Yep. The black-flanked rock wallaby were once widespread across WA, SA, and the Northern Territory.
Yeah, I think they were a favourite event from WA.
But the clearing of their habitat and introduced foxes and wildcats now threaten their very existence.
Oh.
So, it's really a shame that we have so many endangered species. And here's another one. The Collingwood player used to roam far and wide between February and November. But as of yet unidentified changes to their habitat have almost halved their numbers. There's only 25 or so left, with more falling by the day.
That's incredible. You know, I believe the dodo's got a greater chance of clawing its way back from extinction.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Me either.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I am Sly.
And it's just another 4 point spook.
Well, it's a pretty rare 4 points lately.
No, we haven't had a lot of them.
Okay, so let me set this up.
Is the 4 points on the endangered species list?
No. Oh, it should be, but no. Opposition jumped out of the blocks. It looked like it could get ugly. Some restructuring, some tinkering. Opposition were hauled in, overrun. Fantastic coaching effort by Ray Shaw against Hawthorn. Brilliantly done. Quarter time he reshuffled, addressed Hawthorn's dominance, and gradually they hauled Hawthorn in.
It's not that difficult, really, is it?
It's not that difficult. But with Collingwood, what did we see? Steel side bottom went forward.
Who was calling for that, I wonder?
Wills, Adams, Greenwood in. Wills and Adams in the middle. Suddenly, we got a bit of spread. I don't think I've seen Treloar run as often.
Oh, he didn't have to, because he didn't have 15 blokes on top of him.
No, and he had clear space, and he went for streaming runs. He looked dangerous, and once he started looking dangerous, again, it breaks open the zones for other players to come into it.
We should preface each one of these statements with, it was Gold Coast.
It was Gold Coast, but we'll say that at the end. Great to see. I've been a big fan of Wills, as you've heard on this show, for 112 years.
I wasn't.
You weren't, because you said you don't like Rupert's.
That's it.
Or you haven't since
Rupert
Rupert
the
Giles. No, it was great to see Wills used as a...
Battering ram?
Well, in a position that he's actually played in the reserves.
No. Inside mid.
Inside mid. Not like a run with mid to put on the competition's premier midfielder in Patrick Cripps. Not a defensive forward, as he was played against Sydney.
Or a relief ruckman.
Yep. He was really just used as an inside mid. Him and Adams provided a great grunt and a ferocity at the ball. Yep. And if they weren't going to win it, they were going to try and make sure nobody else won it. Some of Wills' handballing, there was like one really good tackle in the second quarter where they really held on to him, and instead of just panicking and firing it away, he actually spotted someone just about 10 metres away outside traffic, and he got the handball off to him. I think it was actually Dacos.
Dacos?
The thing I like about Wills always has got a little bit of poise. If they could get Braden Sy right, I'd be playing all three of them. I'd be going, you know what, you can't have enough of this when you got so many outside sort of guys.
Do you know what Wills really needs, though?
What?
A proper haircut.
He does. He was wearing that headband for a while, the Living Newton John physical headband.
Do we have his numbers? Are we talking about his numbers now? Because his numbers weren't too bad.
His numbers are good.
Yes, was it something around about 90% disposal efficiency, 18 handballs?
A lot of it was feeding out, and that shows that he's a coal face, and that's what Trelaw's been doing. Trelaw's possessions of over the course of the year have been predominantly
all 16,000 of them.
Yeah, predominantly handballs because he's the one in the middle. Sorry?
To who? Who was he handballing to?
Oh yeah, I don't think that was part of it.
Cannon fire!
But Trelaw looked fantastic. That's the best game he's played.
Nah, excellent. He killed them.
He did both hamstrings. Forward line, they actually seem to rotate through full forward rather than just having one guy anchored there. Cox got on in front of a few on the lead. It's amazing when you start running the way the whole engine begins to turn over.
Yep.
So actually...
Bit of space in the forward line because we haven't given everyone the opportunity to go back there and flood.
Yeah, and that's again...
It's amazing
when you move the ball quickly.
Tactic.
Yeah, I mean, Trelaw streamed from the centre a few times. It was like, all right, well...
I remember seeing that a few years ago.
Yeah.
In Collingwood games. It was good. I enjoyed those games.
Let me ask you, though.
Oh, please do.
Okay, I will then. A lot of the players had their best games for ages. Varco hasn't looked like that since, I don't know.
He was 18.
The 2011 grand final.
I saw 4 pimples on his face. He was that young looking.
But he actually looked dangerous around goals rather than just providing defensive pressure. Huskin Elliott obviously had a really good game.
He had the stickies on.
Elliott looked very promising for the first time.
I actually was really encouraged by that performance with Elliott.
Yep.
No, he was good. Good to see.
I thought Josh Thomas looked...
Must be contract time.
I thought Josh Thomas looked a lot better. Compared to what we've been showing.
Well, nothing.
Yeah, so he looked a lot better than that. Do you fear that any of these players are flat track bullies?
Do we get to answer this next week and the week after?
If you want to do it. Well, look, I mean, the one encouraging thing is they were doing this last year against better opposition, just not in grand finals. But, we've seen that forward line function in preliminary finals and qualifying final, whatever their finals are, and they beat some good opposition last year. So they really, those seem to be a forward line they really need to all be firing, and they start complementing one another, and they actually create a bit of havoc, which is good.
Look, it's only one game, and it was only Gold Coast, but
we're going to get to that too.
A catalyst has to start somewhere.
Oh, look, I think
I'm living in hope.
I think the catalyst was Adams and Wills, and you cannot underscore Adams' importance to that side.
Oh, God, no.
A lot of people have complained about his disposal over the years and all that.
Yeah, forget about that. His frenetic attack on the football more than compensates.
The only thing Adams' disposal, like I've always said it, is I don't think his disposal is poor because his actual technique is poor or whatever. I think at times, in trying to create stuff, he gets a little bit too adventurous, and he goes for stuff where you think, okay, that was a pretty risky kick. It's probably something where you should have said, okay, I'm going to lay off just for this one. But he goes for it anyway, and I don't mind it. If you're trying to create something, great.
No, I agree. He's a bit adventurous. I once saw him swing into a contest on a jungle vine.
Well, okay, so let's look at opposition.
All right, which one?
The under 15s that were out there. So they should have beaten Essendon 8 days ago, whatever it was.
Yep.
But
they're close to full strength, I believe, which I couldn't name 9/10 of the players who were out there.
Oh, the only one I can name is Wits.
Yeah, and that King, Ben King, because he looks good.
Yeah, and you know what he said to the players after the game, did you hear?
Who?
Ben King.
No, what did he say?
He said, stand by me.
Yeah.
Why don't you stand by me? Yeah.
No, that was BB King.
I don't care. I can't.
No, it wasn't even that. I just made that up because it sounded good.
Was it BB King?
No.
I don't.
John Lennon had a cover of the Stand By Me, but that's not important. We'll move on to the footy.
It was an awful cover.
It was good. I liked it.
Yesterday. What was talking about? How good are Gold Coast as opposition? I felt like there was a risk for them after that really spirited performance against Essendon, but that would have been like their grand final, and it would have had this deflation. They did jump us to an extent. Again, we saw a few of those over-the-top easy goals, but it was one of those sort of attacks from an opposition where you think, once you've weathered it, taken the best they have, and counter-punch, then they just go totally to pieces.
I must admit I did miss the first 10 minutes, and I'm probably glad I did, but I was listening on the wireless, and they were talking that, it didn't sound like we got our hands on the ball for about the first couple of minutes.
No.
They got 2 goals, and I think we had 2 possessions in that time. So it's obviously we were a little bit shell-shocked. I mean, as you said earlier, it did look, sounded terrifying, but I think the minute I walked in the door, things turned around. I don't know what you can read into
possibly
that.
could be the match turner.
I think that was it.
I think it has to happen with Collingwood and the Buckley, that they do occasionally start slow while they get their matchups right. And then you start seeing more competitive effort. Unfortunately, and I really got to insert this to qualify this, if we were playing better opposition, we would have been smashed in that first quarter. They would have been like 5-6 goals up before we got on a touch, and then would have spent the rest of the game catching up. And who knows what would have happened, whether we would have done it or not. I mean, Buckley against Richmond was pretty encouraging. I was like, you serious? They just smashed us. They should have won by 12 goals. And if you're seeing positive signs there, I'm a little bit worried. Gold Coast...
But he's been validated this week.
Because we beat the under-15s of the Gold Coast, a side that's never finished above, I don't know, 15th or something? I don't know.
I think they've won two games out of all their games at the MCG.
Yeah. And really young side. Obviously lost a lot of quality players like Tom Lynch and the guy who went to Melbourne, Steve May. Yep.
And Ablett.
Yeah, and they lost over 2 years ago. But they're rebuilding yet again. Young side, inexperienced, all that sort of stuff. So I was never that concerned about this particular game here. If it was over there, I might have been a bit concerned. So I think it's still got to be looked at. We played lesser opposition, but the positive side is we actually got to play some of our game, actually started to shift the gears, and, it's almost like, hey, we've got a good practice run in before the next challenge, which is Melbourne, and then we got 2 pretty... who knows where Adelaide will be, but then you got Essendon at the end of the year. But it's almost like he's now scaling up. So you start at the bottom with Gold Coast, Melbourne, Adelaide, Essendon.
And they're all winnable games, and they should win them all.
But there's probably no better way to
play yourself back in the form of shit.
Yeah. So that's hopeful.
No, and the one other thing that I took away from the game too is I actually thought their tackling was really, really up from where it's been the last few weeks, and that tenacity really showed in the way that we... I don't know whether the fact that Gold Coast are lazy about the way that they didn't exploit the way that every other side fills space and then exploits us, but we just seem to have plenty of open paddocks to run into this game. And there was a couple of times I'm looking back thinking, well, that's obviously the experience of the side, but they just didn't look like they were running back in a position or weren't particularly defensive enough. And the thing is, we exploited it. No matter what, you can't complain too much about this, is because you went out and you did what you had to do against
I think a lot of that happened because, again, you had the synergy in the midfield now with Adams and Wills there, which pushed Pendles and Phillips and Treloar on the outside.
Yep.
Side bottom, up forward, complemented like a dangerous looking medium, mid-sized forward line. And just, it duplicated a lot of what we had last year when we were winning well. And, okay, the opposition wasn't that great, but we haven't seen that happen at all. Like I said, I haven't seen Treloar go for a run for about, since...
Or kick a goal on the run.
Yeah. That goal on the run was trademark Treloar until this year. Then he kept being stuck.
I said he had 98 blokes on his back at any given time.
I think at times...
It was like watching a barrel of monkeys.
I think at times there was a little bit too much still flat-footedness when they were working their way out of traffic. Where I would have rather just seen a player go. I mean, they did it a few times, but I was still trying to search for their way out. But again, it's encouraging because you got this game, which was a good way to find a bit of form. Now they've just got to build on it.
That's it.
But having said that, we beat West Coast a few weeks ago, and then...
That should have been a catalyst.
And we've said this plenty of times this year. There's been catalyst opportunities. Let's see if it's different now that you have Adams and Wills in there.
You think, and I think it was something that Treloar said a couple of weeks ago about, I think it was when it was round 18, we said we played like, who did we play in round 18? It wasn't Tigers, was it? Who did we play before Tigers? Doesn't matter.
GWS.
But yeah, that was it. And, he made the statement that they played like it wasn't round 18 and they did, which, it's a bit of a silly statement. But you can see the sense of what he's saying. Now, maybe it's hitting home that the run to the finals now is only, 3 games away. Maybe now it's time to extract the digit. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be telling. Look, I said, it's only Gold Coast, it's only 1 week. I haven't popped the balloons or the streamers or the party pies or whatever it is you do yet. I have booked the grand final weekend away because we're clearly going to win that now. But yeah, no, just 1 week at a time from here. And hopefully they just build on this from here.
Yes, haven't heard that before. What do you think of Dacos?
Encouraging, I thought. He's been a bit patchy, but I think he ended up with about 20 touches, I think.
Yeah,
and
you got
a couple of them were quite silky, which seems to be, as you said earlier, it's his trademark. But he was getting the ball, he was finding the ball, so again, that could be an encouraging game for him.
I really like what I see. I mean, he makes a number of errors, but the errors where I'm looking and going, that's a composure thing as you get more acclimated to the pace of the game. And it's no coincidence that, against Gold Coast, who's a lesser opposition than Richmond and that he's going to find a bit more time with the ball. So it gave him a bit more of a leeway in terms of acclimating from VFL to AFL, and hopefully he just keeps developing.
Well, it's important he probably gets a couple of weeks run at it now.
Hopefully
I mean, and the way that we're dropping, I don't think he has to worry about fighting for his spot.
Schoenberg?
I think it was still a bit of a mismatch in terms of size, but he didn't really stand out to me. He did a couple of nice things, and a couple of times he was beaten. But again, at this stage, it's more about just getting games back into him and watching him without thinking, is this the one where your knee breaks?
Well, look, hopefully he can play a longer, uninterrupted career.
He's only going to get better. I'm a big rap for him based on what we saw last year. I really hope that with all this injury nonsense for him is behind him, and he can start building on what could be a very, very good player for us.
Last one, Varco.
It's probably the first time in weeks he wasn't playing as a pinball. Yeah. He wasn't going out there just trying to hurt people. He actually demanded the football a couple of times, or he ran into space and just sort of sat there and took a mark. And he just looked like that sort of player you should be at that age, where you're not going to probably terminate your fitness in the first 30 minutes by trying to kill everything that's moving. But he can be he's got smarts. He's a senior player. He should be doing that slow down forward role, I think.
What I'd like to see Buckley do, and since obviously a lot of what we're saying is happening weeks later, what I'd like Buckley to do is tell people like Sidebottom, like Varco. And Sidebottom did this in, I think it was the third quarter, where he got the ball and he ran around the goal square and he could have just snapped it in, but he handled it off to Hoskin Elliott, who then did a snap in. I would like Buckley to tell players like that, it's okay to be a little bit greedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay to nail it.
I actually thought he was in a better position to have that snap, and he wouldn't have missed it. But it was that classic sort of side bottom handball where there were two players closing in on Hoskin Elliott, thinking, I would have rather you did that nice little evasive run, you got into space, just take the shot. Yeah. And it's the same, I think you're probably going to touch on in a second, but Callum Brown did it. I think he kicked 2 goals, but there's a couple where he's in a perfect position, and he's dropped it, and look, obviously the kick was good, and if he just elevated a couple more metres, it would have sailed through. But again, you're reducing the likelihood of it being, I think in both cases, it was marked, fortunately. Yeah. But it could spill through, or go through as a rush behind or something. I think when you're 30 or 40 metres out, you should be on the run having those shots. If you miss... I'd rather you miss.
But I actually recall, I was talking to someone else about this. I went to Collingwood training back in 2000 when Maltas had just taken over. And he was talking about taking the initiative. And he was just saying, when it's there, take it.
When the chips are down.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is, I'd rather see players go, you know what? I think I can nail this. I'd rather they fail trying something rather than being safe and fucking something up. Just go for it. I mean, you're professional players... 40 metres out, you should be at least nailing the distance relatively easy.
It's a confidence thing, clearly. I think they're a little bit shattered, but, if you
I reckon a bit of it isn't confidence. I reckon a bit of it is there's that unselfishness that they're trying to perpetuate, and that's why they're doing it, whereas that's why I said rather Buckley just go for it at times. Unless it's totally unrealistic and you have other options, other times just go for it. And those ones we mentioned, they were all relatively simple. Final thoughts?
Good to be back on the winners rostrum.
On the winners nostril.
Look, they've just got to build from here now. If you want to be serious about having a stab, we're probably going to do it from outside of the 4 unless we win all the next 3.
It's always going to depend on results.
Go our way. But look, I'm still a massive believer that with the current buy that comes in, it's going to benefit us. Being outside of the 4, because we're going to have a lot more of a consistent run at it. Instead of having that break, win a game, assuming you win a qualifying final, and then another break again. I think for us, we're far better off probably... Well, it's not a case of being far better off. It's going to suit us now that we have to do it to have that really...
Build momentum and...
Run and get some few players back, get a little bit more games. As long as you keep winning, it's going to be a sound strategy.
I honestly have always been frightened of Collingwood getting breaks because it just sort of seems
leg breaks or arms.
Been frightened of those too.
Yeah.
But just every time they seem to get a bit of a run on, then they get a bye or something, and then it's like a bit of a loss of momentum, And I just think they're a sort of side. They really feel to be a sort of side who they snowball, momentum develops. The better the momentum develops, the better they get. And once you actually put a block in it, it's like, oh shit, we've got to start it all back up again.
What has to happen now is you've got to consolidate the how many we got left? About 18 players?
14.
They have to be... You got to look for some consistency in the side now. So you look to Goey's a walk back in. There is a couple of lesser lights that you can move away for that.
The going more.
Hopefully more is the one that comes back in. But these are the ones now that you've got to consolidate. Whatever that team is that gets onto the park has to try and stay the same for that run through.
The Goey and Moore. Moore's a bit of a worry because of that injury profile. Like you'd hate for him to go down in early in the final when you have to reshuffle. And it would just totally throw something out. It's like you can lose certain players and you reshuffle. You go, okay, we've got that covered. But you lose others and you have to reshuffle. And it's almost like, fuck, that just starts robbing us from other areas. Anyway, we'll be back with Medium Acidic.
Oh, good. Is it back, is it?
It is sort of back.
Oh, good. That'll be quick then?
Yes.
Oh, let's get through this.
Welcome back to the Medium Acidic. Yeah, it's not going to be a long Medium Acidic because...
Oh, thanks for watching.
Yes, because a lot of the stuff has been centred around injuries. But we'll get to that in a minute. Dogs are after Darcy Moore, apparently.
What a shock.
What a shock of originality.
You don't think the media's just sort of linking the fact that they gazumped us with the father-son pick by having that early bid, that the natural progression would be they want to have another crack at him? Yeah. 2-2. Yeah. Because apparently, I think I heard on the radio that I don't know who manages him. Is it Pickers or something like that?
No, I got no idea.
Said that he hasn't been spoken to.
Okay.
Well, him as the manager. So, obviously, but maybe it's true in some cases.
Tom Brown said that Grundy has put off contract talks.
Has he?
Yes, although it was reported quite a while ago that Grundy had
put off contract talks.
Yeah.
Well, that's insightful of Tom Brown. Do you think he'll win a Pulitzer for that?
He could. I think he actually said a little while ago
that Walkley.
Grundy has said he wants to stay. I mean, they're talking about the length of the contract. Grundy wants 5 or 6. Collingwood wants 2 or 3. I think Collingwood's doing the prudent thing. The way we murder players, you don't want to be tied down to anyone for a longer than that.
I've always said that out of all the players that you'd think are least likely to leave, I'd say it's him, which has probably meant that I've just killed his career.
Probably.
But I think he genuinely does love it there. Why would you go back to South Australian clubs at the moment now?
Well, Port seems to have a bit of an exciting...
Yeah, they're like a roller coaster ride.
Oh, yeah, I know, but that's partly because they're youth.
I'm out again.
Adelaide's struggling, and I think Adelaide...
That's a shame.
Their top end with Eddie Betts and, Tex Walker and all, they're all getting on.
Well, they're going to have to sort of rebuild, I think, from there. So, look, would you go after someone of such a big magnitude, or would you develop one of your own ruckman along with the rest of the young list?
Oh, I can't remember what his name was, but I saw him playing. I actually thought he was okay. But anyway, maybe I was just looking at someone else. Brandon Sy said a few weeks ago he wants to stay at Collingwood, blah, blah. And that's been reported that he's requesting a trade to Essendon.
I think he's, now that Wills is an absolute gun inside mid, that he's become superfluous to our needs.
Definitely hasn't become superfluous. So you put 28 years into this guy. He had injuries for about the first 17 years. You finally got him in the park and he became good enough to become part of your grand final side. You surely don't want to lose him, especially given your list management is going to manage out a few players like Wells and Reid.
The attrition is going to be high this year. Yeah. I think you'd be looking to retain a reasonable amount of known quantities, and he'd certainly have to be one of them. However, though, he hasn't done himself any favours with his return this year, for whatever reason that we're not privy to, but I wouldn't put a line through him yet.
No, I definitely wouldn't put a line through him. I think he showed
I think he put a line through him just there. I saw the line go through him.
That's through Tom Brown. You've put so much time into him. He's shown he can play. Now, maybe last year was just a flash in the pan, but I'd actually rather keep him on. And, if he doesn't make it, he doesn't make it, because you actually put that investment into him. As I said before, I'd rather Wills, Sire, and Adams are all part of that midfield. And you dropped off someone like Josh Dacos or Chris Mayne, and obviously they could come back into other roles, but like I'd rather have that midfield set up where you always got Sire, Adams, Wills in there at some point to provide that hard.
It's a crash and bash role. You really need an insurance policy sitting on the side. So
I'd have them all in. I'd even have
whether you play them all or whether you rotate one of them in and out, but you need a backup plan there.
Yeah.
If you too, and we saw what's happened this year when all our inside mids are somewhere else. Yeah. We go to the likes of Trelaw and stuff, and it was wonderful as a player he's potentially going to be. He can't do that role particularly well, and nor should he. It's not what he's best at.
No, I mean, he was getting possessions, but they weren't damaging and constructive. No. And part of the reason they weren't damaging and constructive is he wasn't getting it out to someone like himself to run and provide.
Oh, why not?
Because he couldn't be in two places at once, unfortunately.
What about if there was an issue with the matter transporter?
Well, that sort of leads into my next joke. This may shock everyone.
We got another injury?
No.
Yeah.
Collingwood claims there's no injury crisis at the club.
Yeah, go on.
I don't know. Is there an injury crisis at the club? I mean, they're telling me there's not. And then Eddie Maguire came out.
Here it comes.
He said he's going to build a $70 million rehab and research centre.
$70 million. Now, I believe, and I can't actually confirm this, so it's a rumour or whatever it is.
I think it's a rumour.
I don't know whether there's a refusal for us to pay over and above outside of whatever it's deemed to be the cap for coaching, and is that soft cap, I think, where you pay a penalty if you pay X amount, which would logically make sense if you were paying for quality medical and conditioning and all that sort of stuff. So maybe what would that cost you to get a good person in? Maybe what, $400,000-500,000 a year or something like that? Would you do that? Maybe let's say you bought 4 of them, $200,000 a year.
I'd do it easy. I wouldn't give it. If you
times 4.
If you can
$1 million a year in salaries, would you do that? Or would you go and just get $70 million out of your clacker and build a hospital to take care of the people that you don't do any work to actually prevent from being injured?
Oh, this is like, a hospital saying, let's just get rid of the emergency ward and just build a morgue. So when people come in, we just cut out the middleman. We'll go straight.
Well, you wouldn't have to spend $70 million on a morgue.
Oh, you might, depending how.
You just need a bucket and a slab.
What's it going to do all the digging? Oh, but that's amazing. And Maguire, see how hostile I was it. Maguire claims that they've looked at shit like the surface and all that goes. Don't you think we've actually thought about this stuff?
Oh, yeah, no doubt he's right in what he's saying there, but yep.
I have to say, well, apparently no one thought of playing side bottom forward until we said it. So yeah, I don't think anyone's thought about it.
Don't go chasing the symptoms. Go and look at the cause.
Yeah.
Or cure the symptoms. Go and look at stop the injuries from happening. And I'm sure it's a simple statement to make. However, though, really, what goes on in between football games? You train in a venue.
You train, yeah.
Where else are you doing it? You're running up and down a basketball court.
In the gym and shit.
Well, has the gym killed anyone? I mean, there's a lot of people go to gyms every day. They pull up sore and soft tissue strains.
No, from memory, years ago, when Buckley first took over, they had a very weights-oriented program, I believe. And they were getting a lot of soft tissue injuries, and they believe the extra strain was making them more susceptible.
Well, then that comes back to the strength and conditioning department as being the cause.
But I don't think it's one
or maybe
thing.
it's an amalgam of potential things.
I think it's totally...
But get some good quality people out there in sports science and assess the environment there. Fix these things before they become problems. Why spend $70 million on a hospital?
I don't know.
Maybe it's got state-of-the-art home cinema.
It's really gotten to the point where...
Where does he get $70 million from? Well, I mean, not him,
couch
because
cushion.
he loose change out the back of the couch.
Well, it's getting to the point where if this goes on, I'm going to lobby the club to change our black and white stripes to Star Trek red uniforms.
Yeah, no, probably means. We've obviously lined up another sponsor to name the venue.
Who? Olivia and John?
Yeah, the ONJ support centre for ailing, recovering Collingwood players.
Oh, well, speaking of which, Mason Cox is now out for the season with an eye injury.
You can't make this stuff up. Torn retina. I mean, how did anyone reach up that high?
I think I told you I heard it happen when they hit him up in the lead. His eye just popped out in surprise. It was like,
what the fuck?
A lead! A ball out here!
There was 3 eye incidents in that game. Hosky copped a finger to the eye. Mio, well, actually, it wasn't an eye one with him. It was a well placed headbutt to the eye socket. And then Coxie copped the eye. Do you think Gold Coast are just a little bit too much on the gesticulation side? They're
maybe they're
pointing things out.
Maybe they're going for pressure points.
Yeah, that's an old gag.
And we'll get to who replaces Cox later. Dane Beams.
Dane's Beams.
Dane Beams is being sent back into surgery. Needs more surgery.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he suffering from a hip complaint?
Yeah.
And he's been sent in now for surgery to the shoulder.
A hip-related shoulder.
What was he doing? Cartwheels or something?
Look, it's fucking obvious what's happened.
Was his leg that bad that he was just doing handstands to get around?
Last week, it was reported he was back at training.
Then he got hit by a truck.
Now he needs more surgery.
If only we had a $70 million facility to take care of him.
You don't need Jessica Fletcher to bloody work out, what's going on there.
I saw a few blokes down there with magnifying glasses, so maybe they are looking into it.
Oh, you need Columbo for this. I mean, you should get Columbo to do an interview with Eddie Maguire and just get one more thing. I asked you...
Columbo, for our younger viewers out there, was an old TV show.
Not that old.
Not a pizza joint.
Yeah. I asked you last week, so you can give me an answer. Would you trade Brodie Grundy if you could get Jeremy Cameron?
I've thought about it and the answer's no.
Okay, cool. We'll be back with the match preview.
Oh, good. Who are we playing?
Melbourne.
Good. Should be a beauty.
Oh, yeah. We're back with the match preview.
Let's do this.
Okay. Cox out.
Flaps in.
So Mason Cox is out. How do you replace Mason Cox given...
I think we have to build something in our $70 million facility.
So I don't watch the...
We're going to have to do some gene splicing.
I don't watch the AFL, unfortunately. Except when I go to AFL games. Max Lynch, the reserve ruckman, got 13 disposals and 17 hit-outs and was meant to have had a good game.
Is that a cumulative for the year?
But just like 17 hit-outs. They smashed the Northern Bull Ants. And it's like, 17 hit-outs? Is that really that great an effort?
I wouldn't have thought so, but
maybe he
not
didn't ruck that much.
So maybe that's a good effort.
Maybe he didn't ruck that much. But how do you replace Cox?
That's the big issue, isn't it? Who's waiting in the wings?
There's no one at any great height.
Who do we relieve ruckman when Coxie wasn't in the side?
Brisbane Wills.
Reed
and Roughhead have done.
You can't really afford to keep pulling Roughhead out of defence because you with players like that, you're essentially conceding they're going to lose the hit out, and more likely than not, the ball's going to go forward. So you need to be back there at any rate.
I mean, the problem
is forward.
I mean, Richmond won the flag with Grigg as their relief ruckman.
What a comedy!
Well, they won the flag, so it's not comedic.
What a tragedy for us.
Yes. They actually...
Mio, is he...
I was going to say, he's the alternative, but geez, he doesn't really look...
He doesn't leap off the ground all that often, does he?
No. And I was just going to say, there's really nobody...
Maybe Tyler Brown.
Too thin. You get Jeremy Howe's obviously got a good leap, but again, you're robbing...
He'd be destroyed in the ruck.
Yeah. And that's the problem, is you don't really have another tallish player to just pinch it like Lee Brown. So I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be interesting because it's not so much like the forward set up. I was actually going to do with Mason Cox. One of the problems with Collingwood with Cox this year is that thing that happens with a lot of clubs when you have a dominant full forward, not that Cox is dominant, but in terms of dominant target, is you stop playing to their strength, which is usually leading into the ball, and you just start bombing the shit out of it and thinking they'll mark it. And I think that happened with Travis Cloak for a while. Well, not for a while, towards the second half of his career. It's just like, Cloakey marks everything, just bomb it to him. I think it happened with Anthony Rocker also. We just started bombing it to him. I think people won't remember this. Most youngsters won't remember this.
I'll give it a try.
Killer did it with Tony Lockett. They just started bombing the ball. So I think with Cox, like they said, well, here's the target. Let's just bomb it. He's 9 foot tall. Once he was sort of removed from the equation, or as they did this week, they actually started rotating everyone around again. It was like, you got to lower the eyes. You got to be a lot smarter with delivery because we don't have a 9 foot tall ruck forward to mark it. So I think the forward line's going to survive with Cox out. The problem is the ruck. who's going to relieve for
And that's the
Grundy.
thing. I mean, you're going to kill Grundy before final starts if he's having to do it full time. So you're either going to have to just concede moments where you're going to have to pull him off for 4 or 5 minute spells. Worst case is what happens if he gets injured. We're fucked.
Well, definitely fucked.
So you're going to have to do a fair bit of protection of him at the same time. So you're either probably going to have to roll the dice and play maybe Magden or some ridiculous foil. At the same time, you're going to cut off your nose to spite your face and have someone who comes out that gets smashed in the rucks for 15 minutes of a game and does nothing else.
Now, Darcy Moore...
Well, that's the obvious one.
Depending on
reports, with his soft tissue injuries, I don't think I'd be risking him doing ruck it outs.
But he's the only other sort of real tall. So that's a really big issue they're going to have. Melbourne's got one of the best ruckmen in the league themselves. So it's not really a great game to not have a relief ruck who's going to at least be competitive. Or at the very worst, like Lee Brown, just go and actually batter the opposition ruckman and go, I'm not going to win a tap, but you're going to feel me,
Maybe we should put Greenwood up in the ruck.
It seriously could come down to that.
You just go
or Hoskin Elliott or something like that.
Well, not with Hoskin Elliott. He's brutal.
So Tyler Brown, Noble was back, and Broomhead all played well in the reserves. I'm actually surprised Broomhead hasn't had a look in.
He's rookie though, isn't he?
I've got no idea. I don't pay attention anymore. Jack Magden, 24 disposals, 4 marks. Meant to have had a good game.
That could be him.
He could be him. DeGoey is meant to be out for 10 days according to Jeff Walsh, but you can't believe injury reports.
He said Jovian days though.
Sorry?
Jovian days.
What Jovian days?
How long it takes for Jupiter to get around the sun, which is about, 428 Earth days? Of your Earth days.
Well, if DeGoey comes back...
If
he comes back, we don't know. Well, they said 10 days, but, people going, he won't play again this year, or I'll be back in 10 days. I don't know. So I'm just going on. If he comes back...
Well, Darcy Moore only had a slight strain to his hamstring, and he could be back within a week.
Well, again, that's being reported 2 different ways. Anton Tuhill, one of the RH rookies, kicked a really nice goal.
To be sure.
And did a really good celebration.
Or get him in then.
Jeez, you might. So I'm not actually sure who they play, who to be out. So Coxey's an out.
You wouldn't really make, unless, Maine got absolutely poleaxed in the closing seconds of the game, and he looked really sore, but he got up. He looked like he'd almost broke a rib or two. Well, he could be in doubt.
Maine and Cox were the two being reported regularly as having general soreness. And I like I said, I'm just speculating, but it feels like Collingwood said, shit, we just can't keep having players go out. Can you just tough it out for a little bit?
And we'll break you out there.
We'll break you later, yeah.
Or we could break you on the training track. It's up to you.
Oh,
but we'll fix you in our $70 million facility.
Yeah. So
get you up on the hoist.
So Maine is a possible out. You wouldn't drop anyone on form?
Well, no, I don't think anyone really... We didn't carry too many passengers, really. Even Josh Thomas did okay.
I thought Thomas was good.
No, I wouldn't. And I don't think at this stage, as I said before, you're looking to solidify a little bit, so you're not going to be making haphazard changes, I wouldn't have thought.
So you think we should make haphazard changes?
Yeah, Coxey's the definite one. Look, if Maine comes out of that crunch, he looked pretty bad afterwards, but then he got up. If he misses out, then it could be the opportunity for Noble comes in or something like that, get a dash off the wing. That could work well, but the ruck is a concern. It's going to be a concern.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no one. If you had Reed there or whoever, you could get someone to pinch hit who actually has a little bit of height, but they just have no one to even offer that sort of.
Has Mio got any mates not doing anything for the next couple of weeks? You think?
Well, this is one thing that is a little bit annoying about the. List management is no disrespect intended to anyone we've drafted, but geez, I'd like to see him get some players of size in there. And given
Tohill's to 200 centimetres.
He's not 200 centimetres.
Apparently, I read today he was 198. That's close to 200. It's closer than I'll ever be to it.
He's not that tall, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that. What I was going to say is the success of Mycheck. I cannot believe anyone would criticise how well he's doing.
No.
And
if you do, bloody have a good hard look at yourself. Unless you're a nice person.
The success...
And you're just misguided.
Or don't know the mirror. Success of Mycheck, to me, it would encourage me if I was managing a list going, for the lower picks, let's go get some 24, 25-year-olds who played at decent leagues. And then they did that a few years ago when they brought in Cole Martin and Sam Dwyer and Jack Frost. There was all these mid-age players But I really would be encouraged to do that more often because, as my check shows, once you get him in the system, some of these players just click.
Yeah,
and it's not just us, you know.
And they're already senior full-body players. So.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of my check so far is like, you look at him physically, he's already at the size he needed to be.
He's almost like the, and I'll kill him for this, he's the unstoppable object almost. Like, he takes hits and just gets up.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, he'll probably be
But I'd like to see him
destroyed by something, but he's tough.
I'd like to see him do that more often. So,
What, all of them to get up after being hit?
no, just the Collingwood list management to go, let's get some bigger bodies in here. It really could be if they end up playing Wills in the ruck because he has done it.
Yeah, well,
And that's unfortunate because he's just finding form as a mid, and you think you'd be madness to disrupt the mechanisms that worked against Gold Coast and not build on them. Madness. Tip
What a band.
against Melbourne.
Look, Melbourne are what? Last on the ladder or something, I think?
Gold Coast will be last.
For 5th, 16th or something, I don't know. Look, they'll come out firing. If we're serious, we win. It's as simple as that, I think. They've been fairly poor all year. Are they going to lift in the last couple of games? I think it's that Melbourne's want to roll over and take a few draft picks. Didn't someone accuse them of doing that?
Then they basically
Involved a fish tank or something? I don't follow the media all that much.
I don't follow Melbourne at all.
Who does?
Yeah. Oh, look, Melbourne, I can't remember who they played last week, but I think they lost them the week before. They lost to St Kilda. They're not travelling that well for whatever reason.
They'll live for us, though.
That's something to be fearful of because they might have a bit of an attitude of, well, Collingwood knocked us out of the finals a couple of years ago. Let's hurt their finals chances.
Yeah, let's get them.
And unfortunately, it's the fucking attitude that opposition clubs have. It's like, oh, let's go knock over Collingwood and it'll be our grand final. We're insignificant. Like the Carlton Cheers squad. Did you see their banner?
Yeah, what a bunch of...
It's like, seriously, is that the highlight of your celebration? And if you don't know what we're talking about, then, I don't know, just Google morons are us. Tip?
I think we win by 4 goals.
Fuck it, I'll go 48 points.
Well, one of us will be right.
Collingwood Turtle pointed out we're exactly the same position, wins, losses, and position that we were last year at this same time.
Yeah, the only issue I have with that is our trajectory last year was going like that.
Yeah.
In order for that to be a statement of merit, it needs to be doing this again because at the moment we've gone like that and then had a blip. Previous form of the last couple of weeks dictates that it's going to be a little bit of a struggle moving forward. Encouraging game, was only Gold Coast. Let's just hope it starts rising again.
I was actually surprised by that. I mean, I can't remember the exact win-loss ratio, but I think now we beat West Coast Dogs and Gold Coast, and we probably lost about 5 or 6. Whereas last year, I think we went 8-7 not 8-7, that's 15 games. I think we went 6-5 in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
So we're doing well, and toward the end of the year, as you said, trajectory was up. I think we were the best performed pressure team in the last 4 weeks going into the finals. But, we have the chance to reset, rebuild, and Turtle pointed out too, we've had a lot harder draw this season. The thing that really hurts this season is, okay, you had whatever issues you're having, don't worry about what the cause is. The Hawthorn game and the Fremantle game, you should have won. Even having the issues,
Right.
And Fremantle...
You'd be sitting top 4 if you did.
Yeah, and the Hawthorn game, you were 3 goals up, and the Fremantle game, Fremantle got smashed for about the following 4 weeks, and it's here at the MCG, so they're the sort of games where good sides would just go, we'll find a way to win against these shit teams, and you know what? It's like Richmond's done. Richmond had issues with injuries and shit. They copped some poundings during that. They found some good young players, but they also just weathered the storm, and now they're reset and look, they're travelling perfectly. All right, anyway, subscribe, like, listen to us on the podcast. Leave comments on YouTube because really struggled to look at anything else these days. Sorry about that.
Or
and we have a
Facebook
Facebook page,
yep.
which we do look at. If you have any questions for us, like, do fish sleep with their eyes open, then just leave them on the comments. And we'll see you.
Oh, we get to do some research if we have to answer that one.
I'm just going to lie. I can answer any trivia question, you know that? It's a trick.
Not necessarily the right answer, but
no, I can answer it, yeah. Alright, we'll see you next week.
I'll determine the flag. Yeah, I'll take that. We
Missed
win.
it by that, mate. That's a grand final loss. Later.